Hello, Internet. Today, rather than doing a sort of analytical video essay, I just wanted to share with y'all a framework that I've been using in my personal life to do some emotional processing for the last 6 months or so. Empathy buddies. What is an empathy buddy? Well, an empathy buddy is someone you connect with on a regular basis, with whom you take turns giving and receiving empathy. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds like therapy. And yeah, kind of. It's not quite the same thing, because an empathy buddy doesn't have the same kind of training as a therapist would, and the relationship is more like reciprocal. You are both giving and receiving empathy, but it is definitely kind of in that same vein as therapy. Just to be clear, I don't think that empathy buddies should be treated as a replacement for therapy, but more as like an additional support, supplemental to therapy. And side note, therapy is great, and everyone who has the ability to do it should do it. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. So, I connect with my empathy buddy once a week for about an hour over the phone. Our calls take the following format. We start by taking turns naming sensations we're feeling in our bodies. And I like to start like this because I find it easier to understand what's going on for someone. If I have a sense of just kind of what's happening in their body, I find it easier to sort of put myself in their shoes. Then we share things that we know we're needing and feeling. And this part is optional, but I find it's kind of nice to have a little bit of like a cheat sheet if you need it for later when you're making empathy guesses. And it's weird. You would think that, well, why, like, if someone tells you they're feeling something and then later you guess that they're feeling that thing, you would think that that wouldn't do anything. But brains are weird, and hearing someone else say it can help, even if we kind of told them that that's what we want to hear. Okay, so that's sort of the introduction, and then we can get into sort of the main piece of this. You pick someone who's going to go first, and for the next 20 minutes, that person just talks about whatever they'd like to receive empathy around. And if you're the listener during this time, your job is to really pay attention to not only what's going on in the situation, but what might be going on internally for the other person, and try to offer them some empathy. So, when I say offer them some empathy, what does that look like? Like, that's kind of vague, right? So let's get a little bit more specific there. Well, empathy is helping someone feel understood, not by saying, I understand, but rather by demonstrating that understanding. Most often, this is done by reflecting back what you're hearing and making guesses about what the other person may be feeling or needing. And with these feelings and needs guesses, you want to try to use really specific emotions, right? So if you just ask something like, I wonder if you're feeling sad, well, that's not going to connect with the other person usually. That's not usually going to resonate with them super well, just because sad's really kind of broad. It encompasses like a lot of different smaller emotions, right? So if you, instead of sad, maybe you can go, I wonder if you're feeling disappointed, or I wonder if you're feeling a lot of grief, or I wonder if you're feeling heartbreak, right? Those are the kinds of guesses that are more likely to either connect with the person and really resonate with what they're feeling, or they won't, and that's fine. Sometimes your guesses miss, but they'll help them clarify. They'll give them a spot to say, no, it's not heartbreak. It's really more like I'm feeling disheartened or something. So even a wrong guess or a guess that misses its mark can still have value, can still be helpful. And if you need some inspiration or a framework to make these guesses, I'd recommend checking out the Nonviolent Communication, or NVC, Feelings and Needs Inventory. I'll put that in a link in the description below. Side note, if you haven't read Marshall Rosenberg's book Nonviolent Communication, I highly, highly recommend it. It's absolutely fantastic. I've read it several times and I've found it really applicable to like my personal life and my relationships. I don't know, I've found that using the techniques that Marshall Rosenberg talks about in his book have really helped me just kind of connect with the people in my life and understand them better and helped them understand me better. Back to Empathy Buddies. So, after 20 minutes of empathy, my buddy and I do a round of needs met, where we just share any needs of ours that have been met through the giving or receiving of empathy. So, sometimes that means, sometimes we do needs met for clarity or connection, gentleness, care. Those are just kind of a small sample of some of the needs that I have often found met for myself through giving or receiving empathy. So then we switch who's giving or receiving empathy for 20 minutes, followed by another round of needs met, and that's it. And of course, your calls don't have to take the exact same format that mine do. I'm just sharing what I do so that people have sort of a starting point for structuring their own calls. Absolutely make this your own thing, right? It's a tool for you, so, you do you with it. Here's a couple of tips for things that you'll want to make sure you're avoiding when offering empathy. Number one, judgments. Much like therapy, the idea of empathy calls is to create a non-judgmental holding space for emotional processing. There are very few things more terrifying in this world than making yourself emotionally vulnerable only to receive judgment. Number two, advice. When you listen to someone's situation and then immediately offer them advice, it's kind of insinuating that you think the other person is doing something wrong and should change how they're approaching a situation. So it often doesn't feel very validating. Empathy is about understanding another person's perspective, not changing their behavior. And I'm not saying that advice is bad. Just to be clear, advice can be useful. In fact, I'm giving you advice right now to not give advice. It's just not empathy. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about kind of how to have an empathy buddy. Now let's talk about why you might want one. So the first reason, there's value in simply being heard. A 2007 study from the UCLA, link in the description, concluded that verbalizing our feelings can make our sadness, anger, and pain less intense. In this way, having an empathy buddy serves a similar purpose to going out for drinks with your coworkers to vent about work. Number two, it's free. All you need is a phone, an empathy buddy, and an hour a week to spare. Number three, empathy buddies can help you understand yourself better by getting in touch with your feelings and needs. By talking to someone about something and receiving empathy around it, I often discover unmet needs that are driving my feelings. For example, if I'm mad at someone for interrupting me all the time, receiving empathy around this might help me see that anger is stemming from an unmet need to be heard. I found that getting in touch with the unmet needs that drive my emotions has helped me express myself in ways that are more likely to result in my needs being met. And lastly, active listening and empathy are practice skills. The more you do them, the better you get at them. And as a leftist, my goal is to create a society around meeting human needs. So practicing how to listen for unmet needs seems like a pretty important skill for us to develop. So if you'd like to give Empathy Buddies a try, you can pick someone in your life who you'd like to receive empathy from and send them this video and see if they're interested in trying it out. Because I've found a lot of value in it, and I think you might too. Welcome to the Content Void. Here in the Content Void, we showcase the work of leftist content creators who need eyeballs on their projects. Today I want to geek out to y'all about Questing Refuge's video on feeling good enough in Animal Crossing. In this video, Willow talks about how exhausting it is to live with a disability in a capitalist society that's constantly pressuring us to be more productive, and how Animal Crossing has given them an outlet to just kind of exist and be good enough. As someone who's been really struggling with feelings of shame around my own lack of productivity lately, this video really resonated with me, and I highly recommend you give it a watch and subscribe to their channel. Do you have a small leftist project that you need eyeballs on? Send me an email over at ryanhibbseditor@gmail.com with your name, pronouns, and a link to your project, and you too might find yourself trapped here in the eternal prison of the Content Void. Hey, thanks for watching! If you like this video, there's this little like button that looks like a thumbs up that you can click to indicate that you liked it. And if you want to see more of my videos, there's this nifty little button that says subscribe that will make my videos appear in your feed. And, get this, if you want to leave a comment, you can click where it says comments and then type a comment. If you do all of them, then the omnipotent YouTube algorithm will gaze upon my channel with favor. Also, if you have the means and you'd like to support me financially, you can do that over at patreon.com/RyanHibbs. I'm so grateful for the support that my patrons have showed me, especially over these last few months as I've struggled to get videos out. So big thank yous to Dirt Knight, Jamie Lee, Ian Salyers, Austin Brehab, Charismatic Insanity, Erica Watson, Ian Minkes, Alex, Ulrich Volker Anderson, Benjamin Kuhn, Alex Guichet, Carly Bell Jones, JC Urbina, Alex, Post Machina 2099, Aaron Hudson, Al Swigart, Crystal, Sean Locke, Thomas Cranador Hahn, Grace Barkoff, Guns Agduk, Zach, Ruby, Gary Hetzel, Matt Buffano, Paul Flores, Ben Lewis, Just Do Socialism, Madeline Jacobson, Kukilia, Zachary Taylor, Jennifer Fronister, Cafe Softy, Andrew Kavanaugh, and Linda. And also Gene Morrow, who I didn't realize I had left off the thank you list until I was editing the video, and I feel extra bad about that because Gene was my very first patron, so here, I'll give you an extra thank you to make up for it. Thank you, Gene. Thanks again for all your support. Happy holidays, everyone, and I'll see you next year.